Hey, what's up everybody? It's your boy Hugh here from Creator Up. If you saw my recent video, I did a preview of the Obsidian camera. The Obsidian camera from Kandao, the S&R, can now take DMG time-lapse, which create a stunning result for time-lapse photographer. But as I mentioned in the end of the video, doing post-production on DMG time-lapse is actually very not easy because it's really different from the traditional video workflow, and you have to be a time-lapse photographer to figure out how to actually process this image and also how to stitch that. Kandao Obsidian allow you to capture DMG time-lapse, but doesn't mean making that process in post is easier, because DMG is a bigger file that require a higher processor to process, and you know all the difficulty if you're a time-lapse photographer already. So luckily, we have a lot of tools to help us to speed up this workflow. The couple tools I'm gonna use in this tutorial is first Mystica VR. Again, you don't need to own a Mystica VR. You can do the same thing with like ADP or any free stitching solution out there. In here, I'm just gonna use Mystica VR. But I will show you that in this tutorial, I will minimize the usage of Mystica VR, so you can cut that part out if you don't own Mystica VR. And another big one I'm gonna use in post is using the software called LR Timelapse and Adobe Lightroom. So I'm gonna using this software that most of the time-lapse photographers are familiar with, which is LR Timelapse for this entire workflow. But instead of a 2D time-lapse, I'm gonna create a 360 HDR style time-lapse. So yeah, let's dive right in. So first, go ahead and capture with your camera, which is the Obsidian S&R or your Xiaomi Mi Sphere, whoever camera that can take DNG time-lapse, basically DNG image sequence. If you want to learn about how to do that in the Mi Sphere Xiaomi, go watch my other tutorial. On this one, I focus on a professional camera, which is the Obsidian S&R. So with that camera, you can actually capture 6 lens DNG file, which is you see here from number 0 to number 1. That's what you after you import the footage from the camera SD card to your desktop, that's how your organization will be from 01 to 02. So a couple things even before we go talk about how to do post, we talk about how to actually correctly shoot 360 time-lapse for the Obsidian S&R. For me, that's how I do it, but again, you might have your way to shoot it. For me, I usually point lens 2, actually lens 3 and lens 4 to the sun. The exposure is actually a -1 EV and the rest is 0. Another thing I do is I turn on both the DNG and JPEG format. In Obsidian, you can record both DNG and JPEG at the same time. So why? Well, I will tell you why later. This is actually very important because with the JPEG, you can generate template to use in post. And the third thing is make sure that your camera is on a very steady tripod and make sure it's not gonna move, because we are doing a day to night time lapse. It's a long time frame, and also use 10-second interval. Again, you can use 6-second interval. That is the lowest you can go for Obsidian S&R. Other than that, just pick a good nice spot to capture a time lapse. Don't let me actually capture my ceiling to record this time lapse, because I don't have the time to go on the beach and do that. But pick a cloudy day, go on the beach, a lot of movement around you, and capture the DNG time lapse, and then just let the camera run. And then after you capture all the image, you import all the footage in your laptop, and that is the sequence you see from 01 to 02. And if you follow my instruction, my sharing instruction, so you should have 2 type of file, the DNG file and JPEG file in the Obsidian format. So there's a couple of ways you can go from here. You can follow my tutorial run and just go ahead and stitch this DNG directly using Mystica VR into equal rectangular footage, and we can go from there and color correct it as a whole image, 360 image in the Lightroom or Camera Raw, and then you can import that in Photoshop or Premiere and finish the rest. That's one way to do it, but that's heavily involved Mystica VR. You need to own the license to do that. Mystica VR allows you to stitch a DNG file, but if you follow this format, there's one problem, because file format from Obsidian, usually you cannot read from Mystica VR. If you drop this footage in, Mystica VR will think that's all individual lens data. It's not as an image sequence. So step 1 is actually organize and rename all the footage. I'll just make a demo. So let's say that if you drop like that is a 2 images, the frame 1 and frame 2, right? This 2 image. I can even do DNG. Pick one, this one, this one, this one, this one. There should be just one lens data, right? But if you directly drop this image into Mystica, Mystica will think that it's a 4 different lens. So there is a 900 frame right here. They will have 900 lens, and Mystica will crash. So you cannot just drop the footage directly into Mystica. You actually need to rename it into Mystica format so Mystica will know what is going on. So to do that, just go ahead and download the Mystica little utility tool. I put a link below, but after you download it, put it into your Mystica folder, which is right here, the SGO. So I'm on a PC. If you're looking for the Mac solution, Andrew from the group actually created a software that allow you to do the same thing. So I will put a link below in his tutorial as well. So you can follow his tutorial if you're on a Mac. So on a PC, that is the thing you need to record CanDAO exe. So you can download it on internet and just open it. And that is the file. And it's actually very easy. You go back to your folder structure. And then right here, if you want to directly process DNG file, just go ahead and grab the first DNG file on the first frame, drop it in, and then Mystica will just rename it. See the processing right here, they rename it and create a new folder of all the DNG of lens 1. So after we are done, you can go back to the folder, and that is the folder Mystica VR generated. And in here, it just rename everything for you. So you can grab this folder out. And for me, I actually organize them as a DNG prep folder. So what is here is basically whatever this little software generated for 6 lens, and I put it in here, get it ready to go. So this file you can drop directly in Mystica, and Mystica will recognize it as a lens data. So I'll show you right now directly. So go ahead. You only need to grab the first one right here, the first one of the entire sequence. Drop in Mystica, and see we create one lens. And then actually import the entire sequence. As you see right here, it's not just one frame, but the entire sequence. Mystica will just import that. And then you do the same thing for lens 2. Just one frame. And create second lens. So you can go ahead and just fill up the all 6 lenses in Mystica. And then you can stitch from there. And Mystica, you can stitch directly DNG file and output from there and correct in Lightroom and go from there. That is my own workflow, but I have a better workflow right now, and we are only gonna use Mystica at the end of the video, and you don't really need Mystica to actually do that if you own AVP or any other software. So let's just go ahead and close Mystica right now and looking in the second workflow. So now after you generate all the file, we name them, have this DNG prep folder. So the next step, we're gonna prep this 6 lens data before you actually stitch them. So go ahead and open LR Timelapse. In here, I have LR Timelapse Pro. You don't need Pro to actually do that. You can just have a private or the free license to do the exact same thing. I have Pro because they have batch processing, and that is actually a really time-saving feature because you have 6 lens, 6 time lapse, process at every single one time, and you won't have batch feature to increase your workflow to save time. So go ahead and LR Timelapse, find the folder we have in here, which is the DNG prep right here. And then in the folder level, if you right click, I have this option called Bench Initializing and Camera Preview. Hit that, will basically branch initialize all the subfolder in everything underneath here. So it will ask you, hey, do you want to do that? So go ahead and run the operation. If you hit yes. So now LR Timelapse gonna branch, process, and preview all 6 of the Obsidian camera file. That is a time saver. So if you have a Missphere, you have 2 folder. If you have other big camera, maybe like the Blackmagic Rig, which is a different camera capturing DNG timelapse, also cinema DNG file, you will go to the exact same workflow, but instead of 6, you have 8 or 10 or whatever camera you have here. But so now, gonna take our timelapse for a while to initialize the photo, depending on how fast you're processing your CPU and GPU. I don't actually have a really fast machine on my CPU, so I will pause the video right here, go get a coffee, and come back when this is done. Okay, now batch initializing is finished. As you see, everything indicator is gone in the LR Timelapse panel. So it's good. So if you go ahead and pick one, and we see the preview right here, indication of what's going on. So go ahead and hit the keyframe wizard. in here, and depending on the time that you have, if you can preview this time lapse actually the lighting is not changing that dramatically. When I shoot in Obsidian, I actually set in full manual mode, so I set the ISO and set the shutter speed. Actually, sorry, I set the ISO into 100 and the shutter speed into various, so I have an ISO priority mode. But as you see, the time lapse only have a dramatic color change during the end when the sun went down and then the sky from blue and turned into purple-ish. And so all the dramatic effect, actually dramatic color change and color and lighting change happening at the end of the time lapse. So create a really smooth time lapse, I would generate actually 5 keyframes right here. So in here, as I already read the footage, we realized that in the first half of the part of the video is actually the lightless. The color change and lightless is really minimum, so we don't really need keyframe right here. We really need keyframe start from the middle part and the third part. So and the first part we don't really need that, and actually these 2 keyframes we don't even need that. So to save time, go ahead and remove those keyframes. So the first one is right here. Just click that, remove that. As you see, keyframes removed from here, and the middle one I don't need that neither. Go ahead and remove that. So go ahead and hit save. So save this into the metadata, and then now do the same thing as lens. So after you did all that to create all the keyframe and save it, now next thing we gotta go into Lightroom and do the actual color. Right here, drag to Lightroom. And then Lightroom will open up and make sure that it's on add. So add to my category. So go ahead and hit import. So after you import, you see the folder show up into your project panel, but actually you will not see that. You only see 01. You will not see the parent folder or all the rest of the folder. So how to actually batch import everything from our tenant to the Lightroom. So let's, for example, that is what you see right now, right? You right click it, you can actually have a button say show parents folder. Go hit that. You actually show the parent folder, which is DMG Prep, and then right click on the parents folder. You can hit the synchronize folders. So if you hit that, you basically brought in all the image from all 6 folder into Lightroom. So you can do a batch color correction. That saves you a ton of time. So after that, let's go ahead and correct the lens 101. So in here in the filter section, go ahead and pick LR timelapse keyframe. And then now we only see 3 keyframe because that's what we created, 3 keyframe. So go ahead and hit the develop tab. Again, this is not a Lightroom tutorial. So if you want to learn how to use Lightroom, go ahead and search other tutorial on YouTube. So I gotta do this really quick. So that's frame 1. So let's go ahead and just reset everything. It's back to the original setting. That is what you see directly from the camera. So I just do a really basic color correction. Again, you can go crazy, create the HDR effect like you see the angel time lapse on the form. But in here, I know it's daylight, so I'll just pick daylight. So one thing I always do for this DMG file is I will drop the highlight into 0 and then bring the shadow back. So really have the HDR look, and I really like it. And you can do that for DNG file. You cannot do that in JPEG file because that would just bring a ton of noise and destroy the image. So after I bring up the shadow and drop the highlight, I usually add in clarity, which create also this HDR effect. And for here, I just make it 50. And then if you want to bring up the color, the rich color of your DMG file, you can up the vibrance pretty high. In here, you can up to 16. As you see, you really bring up the color, the blue and the green of the tree and the blue of the sky, which look amazing. I usually don't touch saturation. I don't like to touch saturation because if you touch saturation, it really saturates the image. It look kind of weird. So I want to use a vibrance instead of saturation. So I want to keep it in 0. So again, that depends on your taste. So how you like the image to look like using your own color correction technique. So go ahead and play the slider. That is just generally what I do. And the next step, the step I always do is denoise and sharpening. So go into the detail tab right here because if you see the JPEG image of Obsidian camera, even the camera is a really nice sensor and lens, you still see visible digital noise in the JPEG format, and we want to get rid of that because now we have DNG. One of the advantage we have is really denoise and make the image look like not captured on a sport cam like GoPro, but instead of a really expensive 360 camera. So I just go ahead and add pretty heavy sharpening amount and denoise amount right here. So if you blow up, you really see the difference between the before and after. So depending on how noisy and how low light you're on, go ahead and play with this slider to go even higher to really get rid of the noise. But in here, because of bright daylight, it's not that much noise, so I'll keep 40, it's good enough. And then the next step is actually one of the also very, very important step is to remove chromatic aberration. So what it does is, look at that, the purple outline around me. If you see like my shirt and my jacket, you see the purple outline around me. It's called chromatic aberration. That is a very common problem on all the fisheye lens. So that's gonna happen in your Misfire, gonna happen in your GoPro Fusion, and also gonna happen in your Obsidian SNR. There's no way to get rid of it if you're only using Mistika, because Mistika doesn't have this feature to remove chromatic aberration. So you actually have to do that before you stitch. So that's why this process I'm teaching you right now is so much more important, because you can really get rid of the chromatic aberration, and you can't do that after stitch. So go ahead and click that, and you see that before, after, and see the purple line is disappeared. So for some scenario, if you don't have DNG file, let's say you shot in a GoPro Fusion, it also generates raw file, but it's a TIFF raw file. You will not have, because it's not DNG, you will not have this slider, but don't worry, you can go into manual mode and go ahead and dial down the differential amount all the way to hit 20. You have the same effect. So if you have TIFF file and other high-res file, that is the other option to get rid of chromatic aberration. But for here, since I have DNG file, so I'll just go ahead and use remove chromatic aberration. And that is usually what I do for color correction. Again, you can go crazy, pick a crazy preset, like the Brandon Woofy preset, and make it look like super stylish. It's totally up to you. It's a DNG file, so you can go crazy and really add your own branding into your image. But here, that's just a basic color correction. So now, after you finish that, you want to copy the same preset onto these two images. So go ahead and hit Ctrl A to select all. And right here under script, just go ahead and pick our timelapse sync keyframes. And then the keyframe will brought into the next two frames. And take a look at the second frame. It still look pretty good. I think it's alright right here, but look at the last frame. The sun is totally down, the sky is really dark. So in here, I'm gonna bring up the exposure to 1, so you can still see thing. Actually, I'm gonna also bring the temperature up to 600, 6,000. So that is the only two changes I'm gonna do. So now we're done. So we can go back to the library. And I'm gonna do the exact same thing on lens 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So after you're done with all the color correction of all 6 lenses, so you can go ahead and select all the file, and then select all the file. Make sure the file selection here tell you that you selected 4,512 frames. So that's all the flows selected. And in meta, you can go ahead and set meta to files. So you say the metadata to files. So now we are back to LR timelapse right here. So go ahead and hit reload and load in the metadata we just saved from Lightroom. And then after we finish loading the data, you see the new change right here, and go ahead and hit auto transition. If you hit that, it has the indicator tell you that you actually already use auto transition on this special time lapse. And after that, you can go ahead and hit the visual preview to actually see the final result right here. And that's gonna take a while, but one good thing about using a pro version of LR timelapse is while it generates a visual preview, you can just click the next one and continue your work. So here you say you can still visual preview being there are still visual preview being created. Would you like to finish this tab in the background? Go ahead and hit yes. So that you just continue to let Lens 1 do its thing, LR Timeline do its thing in the background, and now you can do the same process here. Go ahead with reload. And then go ahead and after reload is done, auto saving is done, go ahead and hit auto transition and generate a smooth transition to get rid of the flickering and have this smooth transition, exposure change, and color change. So after that is done, again, same thing, go ahead and hit the visual preview, and then you can jump on to the next one. And then hit yes. So just repeat the process. So while visual preview is happening in the background for the rest of the lens, so lens 01 is finished, and as you see, this interesting paint curve is represent the visual flickering you have on your time lapse. So if you play that, you see that little flicker happening on the screen right here, and that is actually captured by this paint curve. So one of the great reasons why I select LR time-lapse for any time-lapse, including 360 time-lapse, is the ability to get rid of visual flickering, so make your time-lapse more smoother, so you will not have that flickering effect. So in here, after you generate visual preview, you can have the option using the visual deflicker to hit that. And depend on how smooth you want your timeline to be, you can pick how many smoothing you have. On here, I usually pick just go ahead and hit 20 because I want my footage to be really smooth, especially for 360 time lapse. In just my taste of it, so I can do an higher level smoothing. You can also do multi-pass deflickering and using the accuracy setting. That is a new feature available in our Timelapse 5. But for this footage, since I really control my shooting environment and I shoot pretty smooth timelapse, so there's no need to do multi-pass deflicker. But if you are shooting in a really harsh environment and you have no control of your ISO and your shutter speed, and you have a pretty flickering footage, go ahead and use multiple pass deflicker to really get rid of the flickering. So after that, just go ahead and pick the degree and hit apply. For this one, because I already have visual deflickering, so I just hit refine, and then LR Timeline do its thing. So you're gonna go through the same process to wait for the visual preview on the lens 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and using visual deflicker to further deflickering your footage. So after this done, you can go back into Lightroom and select all the folder, Control All, and select all the frame, and then metadata, go ahead and hit read metadata from files. And then we have a warning, and just go ahead and read data from files. And then Lightroom will go ahead and read the metadata from file what you did in our timelapse. This process is actually very, very slow, so there's other cool feature from LR timelapse here, say like speed this up. LR, go ahead and hit this filter, it will turn off the visual preview and just make this process 10 times faster. As you see, the slider is going in a little bit faster now to finish this final process. And then after you load up all the data, metadata happening in LR timeline into Lightroom, go ahead and pick this LR5 full sequences again, and then make sure you select all the frame from here, and also make sure that you select individual folder right here, but not the parent folders. So next, the last step, you're gonna do an export right here, and that will bring up the LR timelapse export window right here, the LR timelapse. And in the Pro, you have the option to output TIFF file in 60-bit. That is a really high bit depth, large file, so you have a lot of room if you want to do further color correction and turn it into HDR footage and whatnot, HDR video. You can do that with this high resolution bitway TIFF file. So go ahead and find an output path, and then using see right here, when you select multiple folder, you actually tell you have multiple sources, and then go ahead and hit export and export the file. So after export is done, if you go back to LR timelapse, they will actually pop up a window to see the output video. So you can actually close that, and then you can go ahead and in LR timelapse, it's the last bench processing right here. Get file, render preview, render video right here. Hit that. You open LR timelapse rendering window. So let's find a preset. So I want to have a preset to generate ProRes. And then the output size is source file, so it's 8K times 8K stereoscopic footage. And in here, frame rate's the same. And then quality, you can have really high quality video. To me, I think high is enough, but I just go crazy, go to very high. But if you really want a really high quality, you can go ultra high if you want to. And then the gamma, you can pick the red 709 or whatever gamma you want to use. And in here, color sampling, I usually go crazy to go 444 in the ProRes. And then the cool thing is here, because if you do not use our time lapse, you might want to create a time lapse and then you need to bring to After Effects and add in motion blur, so make the motion smooth, especially if you capture a time lapse with a lot of people walking around. You will look really like jittery and without the motion blur. And our time lapse, it had the feature to actually add in the motion blur. It's actually really high quality motion blur, as you see my footage. So I will go ahead and hit high, and then also add sharpening into the footage to make it sharper. And then again, I can select all 6 files right here, right? And then select the multiple file, yes, and hit render video, and it will go ahead and render all the video for me. So after rendering is done, as you see, there's a 6 individual .mov ProRes 444 file generated from our time lapse to retain the highest video quality possible for the final render. So in here is .mov file. You can use any stitching software to stitch the footage. So it's not DNG anymore, it's not TIFF file anymore, it's also not image sequence. So you don't need to rely on Misica if you don't want to use Misica. You can use AVP, you can use any free stitching software you want. You can even bring this into like Insta360 Pro and use it in 360 Pro Stitcher to stitch that if you like shot this in 360 Pro for any solution you want. But if you want a best stitching quality, you can either just use that with the original Obsidian Studio, which does not stitch DNG file but does stitch .mov file, so will produce the highest quality. But again, that is a very slow software, so I still highly recommend it. If you have it, use the Misica VR to do that, and that is how you do it with Misica VR. So step 1 though, remember in the very early version, I actually generated, if you go back to the folder, I actually generate JPEG sequence right here. I prep with JPEG file. Why I do that? Because I'm gonna use Misica template to generate perfect Obsidian stitching, and that is very special process to work on Obsidian camera. I'm showing you how. So go ahead and open the Obsidian CanDAO Studio. We are not using CanDAO Studio to stitch because it takes forever. We are only gonna use it to generate a template to use a Misica. That's a trick to actually how to stitch Obsidian camera. So go ahead and find the sources and go back to the camera file. But instead of picking a DNG file, you pick the first frame of the JPEG file and then hit open, and Obsidian will file all the JPEG timelapse and generate a file. And in here, you can actually hit calibrate to generate a template. After CanDAO Studio finished calibration, you can go ahead and save the project file as the CanDAO project file, and then we can use that helping to stitch in Misica, that's a very special for Obsidians, which is great. You don't need to actually do manual stitch. So after you've done that, go ahead and open Misica and go ahead and remove all links. And this time, instead of bringing a DNG file or JPEG file, we actually have something even better. We have the ProRes file. So we're gonna select all the video file, just drop it into Misica. And that's just the regular movie file. You will just load up into 6 links. Go ahead and pick the template, pick the presets, which is just shot in CanDAO right here. So we have the CanDAO Obsidian's template, and look at the file size is this template. Go ahead and pick that, open that. So instead of doing manual calibration and manual stitch, we go ahead and actually gonna drop in the project file we just saved right here, the CanDAO project file, which is CanDAO calibration. Drop it in right here, and usually that get you the very close stitching. And go ahead and turn on optical flow and find a frame right here. If you turn on VR mode, and as you see, that is really accurate stitch. Go ahead and turn on stereo mode. That's very accurate stitch. So from here, all I'm doing is go back to the first frame. and just make sure the color blend together really well. So I will always do that. Match color in time. Or let Mr. Color to blend all the individual links together. Because remember that when you're doing color correction into LR Timelapse or in Lightroom, you're actually using a lot of HDR effect that will actually generate a stitch line in your final footage. But with Mr. Color, that is the magic of Mr. Color. You have the match color in time, really smooth out those transition. As you see, you will not be able to see the stitch line in any direction. So that's why I prefer this process, and also see this ghost me right here is because I'm using the LR Timelapse smooth motion effect, so really smooth the motion here as well in the time-lapse. So in here, I can just go ahead and render the final format, and I always love the MP4 Nvidia movie using this codec, and it's a top and bottom stereo. And then you can also ingest spatial metadata, render that, and then upload that on YouTube, Facebook, and whatnot. So this is a long tutorial, a little bit complicated, but hopefully you learn my workflow, how to handle DNG file and create DNG time-lapse. And again, if you like this video, don't forget to give me a thumb up. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, it would be really appreciate you subscribe to my channel and share this video to your friend that also into time-lapse into 360. And I will see you next time.